Hello, welcome to the channel. In today's video, I'm going to do a response to a comment I got on one of my previous videos, the different ways to split wood video. At the moment I'm blanking on the exact name of that video, but I'll put it up on screen. But was a viewer that put up a comment, was quite a substantial comment, had a lot of good points in there, and I wanted to do a video to give my thoughts on the ideas that were brought up in that comment rather than typing it out. And I have made a list here of the different questions that came up in that comment. So I'm going to go through here one at a time. And the main point of the comment is, why is splitting wood so important? Right? Because I talked about several different ways to split wood, but why would you want to split wood in the first place? Most of this comment comes down to fire making, creating feather sticks and things like that. So I'll just focus on that. There are plenty of reasons why you might want to split wood for crafting, but I will stick with fire making for the moment. All right, so why is it so important to split wood? Why would you cut or saw a large log and split it into very small finger-sized pieces to make feather sticks, especially using a special Scandi grind knife? Alright, so why would you go to all that effort? Right, the example in the comment was a 4-inch log. Right, cut a 4-inch log and then split that up into pieces the size of a finger in order to make feathers or curls to facilitate the making of fire. Right, first things first, splitting wood in the context of making fire. This end of that's pretty dirty, so I'm going to hold this in because that's clean, because I just sawed that. So this size piece of wood will burn for quite a while, right? But having all the round edges on here, right, there are no sharp edges, there are no corners. This will take much more heat energy to ignite and combust than something the same size that is split, right? For example, something like this. If I had a piece the same size as this split piece that was round, this would burn much faster. It would take less energy to ignite, thereby getting your fire going faster, right? So that is one reason to split wood, is to make it easier to get the wood burning, right? Now further along in here it talks about wet wood, right? Why would you split wood in order to get to the dry wood inside if there are other sticks around that are smaller that will ignite easier in the first place, right? Well, the main reason I just already mentioned, the inside of a large log, such as something this size, the inside of that is going to be much, much drier than something this size that is not split, right? It takes a lot more moisture to get to the center of this piece of wood than it does this piece of wood, right? So more of this wood is going to be wet than this one. The outside of that will be very, very wet, but if you get to the inside, that's going to be nice and dry, unless it's been raining constantly for a month, right? Then that's probably not going to be dry either, but usually that doesn't happen. So making your fire easier to ignite and getting to dry wood, those are the two reasons that I would split wood. Now, moving on to making feather sticks. Okay, got dirt on here. Let's see here. Is making a feather stick necessary? Is it necessary when it's wet, right? Or is that even the best way to do it? Talks a little bit in that comment about splitting wood and making feather sticks as being somewhat of a hobby or a sport with rules. I like this wording. With rules to elevate the journeyman from the apprentices. All right. So is making a feather stick necessary? No. I would say very rarely is it necessary to make a feather stick. I would say, for me personally, it's more of a test of my skill with a knife to be able to make a very fine curl. All right, that's a testament to my control and skill with that blade. Not a necessity, a test for me personally. And to be quite honest, I don't make feathers all that often for lighting fires. I do from time to time, but most often I don't. I split wood and I use something else such as fat wood. I use a lot of fat wood. I live in the southeast. There's plenty of it around, so I use a lot of fat wood. So that is my base of the fire rather than feathers or feather sticks. Now, if I live somewhere else that did not have fat wood, then that might be more of a necessity for me because I'm used to using fat wood, so I may not be overly familiar with the materials at hand in different locations, in which case I would probably make feathers and light them with a lighter or a ferro rod in order to get my fire going, because I know that works, right? So that's a backup plan for me if I'm in an area that I'm unfamiliar with the resources, right? Now, let's say that all I have to light a fire is a ferro rod, and I don't have a lighter or matches or anything like that. I just have a ferro rod. That would, again, go back to especially being in different places where I may be unfamiliar with the resources at hand, different tinder resources. I know that feathers and curls will ignite very readily with a ferro rod. So that may be a necessity if all I have is that ferrocerium rod. So, let's see here. Let me look through here. There we go. There are plenty of options that take less time and effort than splitting wood and making feathers. Very, very true. Cannot agree with that more. It can be quite time consuming, can take quite a bit of effort, especially if, let's say, you're in some type of an emergency situation and you're conserving your resources. Time and energy are resources that you would want to conserve. So there are probably better ways to go about it, assuming that you are very familiar with the resources at hand, going back to what I said previously. Here in the southeast, if I got into some sort of emergency scenario and I needed to build a fire, there are a lot of other options that I would go with first before I made a feather stick, even if it's wet. If I were in, let's say, Michigan or Minnesota, and it's been raining a lot, I'm not incredibly familiar with a lot of resources up there. There's plenty of birch. Birch is a really good fire starting material, birch bark. But maybe I'm in an area where there are none, and maybe that's all I know of for that area is birch bark. In that situation, I would probably take the time and spend the energy to cut wood and split it down to make feathers so that I could get my fire going, because I know it works. All right. So yes, there are plenty of ways that you can get around making feathers. It's definitely not a necessity in all situations. I would say it's only a necessity in a very, very small percentage of situations. I'm not going to throw out a number, but very, very rarely I would say is necessary to create feathers or curls. All right, let's see here. Just to practice skills, yes. For me, that's pretty much a skill practice type of thing. If it is just to practice skills, this made me laugh. I was pretty happy reading this part. If so, if it is just to practice skills, couldn't you plan better to avoid that necessity? Right, that's my own word. Yeah, you could definitely plan better to avoid the necessity of creating feathers by cutting and then splitting a larger log. So, I believe that covers most of the first part of the comment, hopefully. Is it necessary? Is it important? Yes and no. Depends on the situation, depends on your skill level, your familiarity with the resources. All right, let's see. Oh, I missed this. Using a special Scandi grind knife. Not necessary. In my opinion, Scandi ground knives, Scandinavian grind, became quite popular from certain United Kingdom based bushcrafters who were somewhat on the forefront of the bushcraft movement several years ago. Ray Mears, Paul Kirtley, people like that, and also Morris Kohansky. Those people all really like the Scandi grind knife, but then again, they are also very close to the Scandinavian region. Morris Kohansky, not so much, he's in Canada, but he did teach quite a bit in Europe and the Scandinavian region, places like that. If you go back to people in this country in that time period and before, going all the way back to colonial times, the Scandi grind knife was probably not a thing. So is using a Scandi grind necessary to create curls and feathers? Absolutely not. As a matter of fact, my second, hold on one second, my second most used woods knife when I was younger was this right here. Old Hickory 7-inch butcher knife, a very thin blade, and somewhat of a saber type grind, not a special Scandi. So, someone is playing music a long way off. I don't know if you can hear that, but that's kind of funny. But yeah, Scandi grind, definitely not necessary. Just has become very popular in the bushcraft community because of certain people that were partial to them. Okay, now as the comment says, back to the video. Light batoning is fine if the tool is capable of it, but using wedges is more sensible. I would agree with that. I probably would not go around splitting something like this that's very, very hard, very dry, and has lots of knots with something like a more a companion, right? It's a relatively thin blade. The heavy duty could probably take it pretty well. Wouldn't have any issue with that. But the thinner blade, I probably wouldn't go through something like that. So I would definitely take the tool into account when you're thinking about batoning. Using wedges is more sensible. Definitely agree with that. You can make a wedge and split almost any size log with almost any knife if you have the resources available to make enough wedges. So yeah, wedges are a good thing. Okay. In most forest environments, standing dead trees with plenty of dead wood are readily available. Definitely agree with that. Yes, absolutely. Harvesting this provides loads of wood for fire making with no need to split. Again, generally I would agree with that. In my region, eastern hemlock is very, very prevalent. That's one of my favorite kindling resources, is the dead lower branches on eastern hemlock trees. They ignite at a relatively low heat temperature. They don't take a whole lot of energy to ignite compared to other things, and they burn very, very hot. So there are probably plenty of things that you can harvest from the surrounding area that don't require any need to split. I have successfully built many fires using eastern hemlock twigs in the rain without splitting anything. So yeah, there are plenty of times when harvesting dead wood from standing trees is more than enough. But if eastern hemlock was not available, perhaps I might need to split some wood in order to get that fire going, because other species may not burn that well when they're damp, right? So kind of goes back to what I said earlier of being familiar with your resources, knowing what the resources are capable of and what you can do with them. So I think that was all I had to say about that comment. Hopefully I answered most of the questions, at least in that comment, if not all of them. If you have further thoughts about that, something that I did not comment on or answer, definitely leave a comment again down below in the comment section. And also, I forgot to mention at the beginning who the commenter was, and at the moment I am blanking on their name, so I will put that up on screen because this video goes directly out to you. So thanks for that comment. It was awesome, very, very in-depth, very thorough, and that was a lot of fun. So I appreciate that, and I hope you enjoyed this video. Hope you found it informative. If you did enjoy it, definitely appreciate it if you, if I could talk, if you'd hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment down below. I definitely enjoy reading and responding to comments. So until next time, go forth, enjoy yourself, and always come home safe.